So before we start today's video, this channel now has a community tab where you can see text updates about things that I'm working on in the background, but it's also a place for you to interact with polls to help decide the direction of some of the videos that I do, as well as specific projects. So make sure to check that out for polls and updates and all that sort of stuff, and links to my other YouTube channels as well when I release stuff there. But otherwise, today's video is actually based on the first poll that you guys voted on, which frankly, you actually surprised me. Just about a year ago, I had this idea to look back on some of my old creative projects, both music and visual mediums. And what I really wanted to do was to recreate these things and make them better, but I thought it would be a much better idea if I actually kind of formatted it in sort of a tutorial kind of way to kind of help you guys maybe grow as musicians, as visual artists, because I made plenty of mistakes back in the day, and if you're just getting into creating music and visual mediums, then you're probably making some mistakes too. And by pointing out the mistakes that I made and giving you possible solutions to fix those problems, it might actually help you grow. And honestly, I think looking back on my own stuff might actually help me grow as well. It might spark some of those old ideas and old inspirations I used to have back then. And the part of this that actually surprised me the most was that this started off as a visual medium channel. So when I posted the poll and asked whether you guys wanted me to do music first, art first, whether you were unbiased or you just didn't want me to do this at all, you guys actually voted unbiased as well as music first, which is actually quite surprising to me. I figured everyone would be kind of mad at me for switching over to doing music a lot more now. But with that said, I guess today's video is looking back at some of my old music, and I'm going to be straightforward with you here. I am going to probably be doing a little bit of EQ and compression on the tracks that I'm showing you guys just to save your ears, because I was editing on dollar store in-ear earbuds at the time, as well as laptop speakers, and laptops back then did not have good speakers, so everything was very quiet. So I boosted the volume of everything to try and make things more audible, and that resulted in having a mix that was peaking like 90% of the time. So if there is a first mistake to point out and how to fix it, loudness. Make sure you're using a set of headphones or speakers that have decent volume and frequency representation when creating music, because laptop speakers and really cheap headphones from the dollar store do not cut it in any scenario. So it's time to analyze one of the oldest rock/goth songs I tried to make back in the day. The disclaimer here is that I didn't actually play any of the guitar that's in this song. I think that I might have done this bass bit here, but it's basically a loop the entire time, and the audio quality is absolutely terrible. So prepare yourself. So the intro starts off like this. That hissing you're hearing in the background is actually because I improvised the lyrics for this entire thing, and I started recording my voice right at the beginning, right up until the end. Then I do this little Okay, well, I mean, first I go because I was a weird child. What band was I listening to at the time? There was a few songs from a certain band where they did a lot of heavy breathing and moany sort of sounds at the beginning to get the message across that they were suffering, I guess. So I was trying to go for something like that, and perhaps I will stay true to that and just maybe do it a little bit less awkwardly. Now, this was a loop that actually came with GarageBand, and I think there's another one in here as well, and they were all recorded in the same key, I think. I might have actually played some guitar in this. There's this little bit that comes in. No, I definitely didn't play that. That is too on time for my guitar skills back then. And that's basically how the whole song went. I'm pretty sure the drums were also a drum loop, because I don't think that I had that much creativity with drums back in the day. Okay, so essentially what I'm saying is take me to the other side of the world where you come from. And this was kind of like, and I kind of think this way still, there's a dark side of the world and there's a light side of the world. The light side of the world is where the good people are, the good experiences, and the dark side of the world is where all the pain lies, the trauma and that sort of stuff. And so I was basically telling my mother, who had a very troubled childhood, to take me to where she was taking me all the time. I had a very troubled childhood as a result of how she dealt with hers. And so this was kind of like a rhetorical, you're going to do it anyway, but go ahead, take me to the other side of the world where you come from. I always had this need to try and help people with their issues. That is a recurring theme in a lot of my songs, and I've probably talked about this before, but I naively wanted my mother to show me or tell me what it was like for her growing up so that maybe that I could help her, but obviously that didn't really go anywhere. Yeah, okay, so maybe this song wasn't necessarily about me wanting to help. I think it was more me trying to say what was happening, regardless of whether I wanted it to. And I think I was going through some pretty dark thoughts at the time. So the whole "see you in hell" should be pretty self-explanatory. Anytime that I have written a rock song or whatever, it has been to kind of deal with the world around me. That's what music is for me. So now that the analysis is actually done, what are some of the mistakes that I made with the music itself? Now, don't get me wrong, using loops isn't inherently evil, but depending on the kind of musician you're trying to become, it could probably hold you back quite a bit. For a quick example, if you wanted to be a remix artist, a mashup artist, or whatever, or a DJ maybe, then using loops is probably a good thing because that's kind of the stuff that you're going to be using for most of your musical journey. But if you're someone like me who wanted to be in a band to write my own original lyrics and stuff, using loops that are pre-created kind of stunts me. And while I will technically learn how to build song structures using loops, when I finally decide to stop using somebody else's creation, suddenly I'm all the way at the beginning again. And while I have song structure knowledge, the only real thing that I learned other than that was having heard other people's creations, which by the point that I got into wanting to make my own music, I'd already done that. I was listening to music for years, and so I didn't really gain anything new other than structure. And so it's like starting over again, despite the fact that you already started however long ago it was that you started creating music. So depending on the type of musician you are, you have to kind of choose what path you want to take in terms of where you start learning. I mean, it's always fine to like change a path later if you decide that, oh, this isn't actually what I want, I'd rather do this. That's completely fine. But if you know for a fact, like I did, that you wanted to create your own original stuff, then go down the path that's better suited for learning to create your own original stuff. Come up with your own like chord progressions and stuff, whether that's playing an actual instrument or using MIDI. Start from the beginning doing that. It's daunting and you might fail, but every failure comes with a lesson learned, and you take that lesson and you move it to the next stage. The second mistake that I made was looping the same thing the entire time in the same way. If I wanted to loop the same thing the whole time and have it stay interesting, what I could have done is, while I wasn't singing, had that guitar at full volume at the bass, and then during the verses, I could have dropped the volume of that guitar, maybe added some effects to it, and some other instruments behind it to kind of make it feel like it's different, even if it actually isn't. And then when the lyrical part is done, the guitars could come back in, and maybe the instruments could either completely drop out, or I could put different instruments in there, and then it wouldn't be so obvious that it was looping. And even if it was, it would still have sonic differences, which would make it more interesting. But of course, these days I don't really like to loop the same thing the entire time, unless for some reason I have an intention for it. But overall, those are pretty much the biggest issues: the loudness, the using loops rather than actually trying to create my own musical ideas, and basically looping the same thing the entire time. And so now it's time for me to kind of like transcribe all the lyrics, rewrite them a bit, and start coming up with a new melody that still has the same vibe as the original, but is more interesting and well thought out, and honestly also my own idea. Okay, so after listening to it through and looping certain sections, I got what I think is the best that I can out of it. Some of it was pretty obvious what I was saying, but other parts were very unintelligible, so I just guessed. We have: take me to the other side of the world where you came from, take me through what you've seen, why you're this way. I can tell you this right now, you come from a very bad past. I don't understand why you have to take it out on me. Stop going back, going where they hurt you forevermore. This is the end of all that shady shit, possibly, that they did to you. This is the age you brought me through. You lied to me forever, it's over now. Can't stop it, see you in hell. I don't honestly know what I was getting at necessarily, but it's kind of strange that these are the lyrics that I wrote back then, because this kind of feels like it pertains to what I'm going through right now. Okay, so the lyrics are a lot better. They're not perfect, but they are a lot better, and I have a bit of a structure decided based on the way I wrote the lyrics. But despite having an idea as to the structure that I want, I can't make any final decision until I have some more music actually written. I generally don't like to pick a structure and then force to work within that constraint. I like to kind of pick the first bit of the song and then move on to the next part and just kind of naturally see where the song wants to take me. And once the whole song's done, if I don't like anything, I can replace it. So the first thing that I actually want to do is record the stuff that's in the original song and perhaps record it a little bit differently, kind of switch it up a bit. So we're going to start with what's actually in the original song for the lead part, because I really like that. The rhythm, however, is like 2 chords, and that's kind of boring, so I'm going to do something a little bit different with that. I just want to reference the original song, and to do that, I'm going to be using the guitar I painted last year, which hasn't actually been used for any serious music yet since I put it back together and got it working. And I think the last song it was actually used for was Double Dark Chocolate in 2015 with my late friend Nathaniel. So I think it's about time that this thing gets some love, and considering the fact that this was a guitar I bought with Nathan, and Nathan's the one that kind of reawakened my love for creating music, I think it's only right that I use this guitar to recreate the first song that I ever actually tried to make that wasn't just me learning how to use a DAW. So off we go to recording.
So I'm in the kitchen making myself another pot of coffee, but honestly, I have to say it's kind of strange having actually played those guitar riffs and to be recreating this song again after so long. Because before today, I didn't really have a lot of memory of actually trying to create that song from the beginning. I remember that I did it, but I didn't have a lot of vivid memories. But now that I've actually played that guitar riff and started recreating the song again, I'm now having a lot of visual memories flood back. And I remember the process of sitting there and looking through GarageBand's loop library and actually piecing this together. And despite the fact that I wasn't playing the guitar riffs, it felt really cool to me back then to be making my own song in a way. And watching the video of me playing that riff, it's so weird to say it because I know it's not my riff. I didn't come up with it, but for some reason it just feels like that riff really kind of emanates me energy, which is stupid because it's not my riff and I didn't come up with it, and that riff was never made with me in mind. But I guess because I have such a sentimental attachment to my old music where all of this started, that riff, despite not being mine, despite not pertaining to me, it's still really special to me. And so, yeah. Anyways, this was just a little bit of a heart to heart here. I'm going to get back to making my coffee and we can start coming up with some more ideas. Probably not for much longer because this video is definitely getting very long, especially with this piece. But here we go. Coffee and more music.
Okay, things kind of went in a different direction than I was expecting, but I'm really liking it, and I'll try to explain what I did because I kind of got lost in the process again. Welcome to me making music. So I dropped myself back in the Mixcraft with the intention of touching the drums up a little bit and recording more guitar, but I also wanted to incorporate the intro bass synth that was in the original song. And I started putting those notes down and then realized that for some reason it doesn't really work with the lead guitar, but I wanted that initial intro to be there. So I started coming up with some new notes for this, which are fairly basic, adding some reverb to it. And then I realized that was sounding pretty good, but maybe the lead guitar needed to have reverb on it too, so it felt like it fit. And that really started sounding cool. And then I dropped down this like hole of making the drums also have reverb, so they kind of build up and then drop. And that was a really good decision because I really liked that. And then I realized that this song could be so much more than a simple 4/4 sort of thing. So I started playing around with the drums a bit and making the drums go offbeat for that little break in between verses. And then I don't know, I kind of just spiraled downward into this really crazy borderline progressive metal sort of sounding thing. And I mean, it's not entirely progressive metal, but there are vibes there. And so, yeah, the song has gone from being what was supposed to be a bit of like a grungy goth sort of sounding thing. And I think this is going to turn into some crazy thing. Okay. Point is, I don't remember every single little detail that I did because when I fall into this spiral of creativity, I tend to come out the other side thinking, what just happened? And that is where I'm going to leave this episode of Looking Back because I can tell right now this is going to become a very involved and ambitious project, which I'm completely fine with. But I gotta say before I go, when I made this song that many years ago, I just kind of did it for the sake of doing it. I didn't put a lot of effort into it. I uploaded it on the internet, and then I kind of just forgot about it. So when I ran into it again like 2 weeks ago, I thought it would be kind of neat to try and do something with it, but I don't really know what I could do because it's just a loop for like 2 minutes, and I could barely understand what I was saying in it. So when I started making this video today and chose that song as the subject, I kind of thought this is probably going to be another failed video, but I'm only like a minute into the song and I'm already seeing this like massive evolution of an idea that wasn't completely mine back then, but is now becoming something real and tangible, which I think would make my younger self extremely happy to know his older self, this many years later, is seeing one of his ideas and going, you know what? There's something in there. There's something in there that's worth revisiting. But anyways, I digress. Crazy things aside, that's the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for this like 23 minute video. I hope you guys are doing well. I enjoyed this, and I think revisiting my younger self was probably something I needed to do, and having you guys here with me for it is big. So again, thank you guys so much. Remember to dream big, because there are no limits here. Wait, reach for the stars, because there are no limits here. That's also the wrong thing. I'm so out of practice. Bye. Oh boy.